Welcome to Catch Up with Dr. James. We have Caleb, we have Joshua, we have Alex. And guys, this is an important subject. We're going to be talking about what happens next. I mean, the world is so uncertain now. Let's say the lockdown lifts tomorrow or next week, whenever. Is life going to return to normal?
No.
What should we expect? What do you think is going to happen?
I think a lot of people are going to be more, I mean, it could go two ways, I think. Either people are going to be more welcoming towards each other, or people are going to be more distant from each other. Because what I mean is everybody's going crazy stuck in the house.
Yeah.
And so they're yearning.
You guys going crazy?
Yeah, probably. Maybe Josh.
Stir crazy?
I mean, have you seen this?
They're protesting right now. Everybody's fighting because they want to go out, they want to go to work. So I think because of that, everybody's going to be happier to see each other. They're going to want to spend time with each other. Or they're just going to go, you know what? I was happy inside because I didn't want to deal with all these crazy people outside. I mean, considering that Miami, I've read this week that Miami, they're on their 7th straight week without a single homicide. So it's like,
That's incredible.
Yeah, is that bad?
But is that is that worth the price paid though? For being indoors with high unemployment rate at, what is it now, 25, 26 million?
It's almost 30 million now.
Almost 30 million. Right. Okay.
I mean, the governor seemed to think that that's worth the price.
Here's a question for you. With unemployment rates rocketing right now, let's say homicide rates are low unless you're going to kill your family indoors. And I'm sure that's happening, right, with, domestic abuse and all. But let's say everyone, goes back to normal. There's a lot more people in poverty. Is that going to, do you think, what's your view on that? Will that increase crime?
I'll answer the question in a different way. You said people coming back in poverty. When the economy does restart, there'll be more jobs and more available positions for people to have, the ones that have been let go. So poverty, I think, is just temperamental for now, but once the economy does reopen, I don't think people will be in poverty, but definitely, obviously, crime will increase. I mean, it's not a discussion. It's just human nature.
Okay, so maybe initially, because of the desperation, but you're saying there's going to be a lot of jobs available.
Yeah, for sure.
So that unemployment rate will reduce. Is that your prediction? It's going to plummet. People are going to get back into jobs.
I don't see why they wouldn't.
You guys have been affected, right? How have you been affected? So are they going to have you back?
They said I am welcome to come back once things start get rolling again.
So that's like, how long is a piece of string?
Yeah, I don't know.
So you got no job to go back to right now.
Yeah.
What about you, Caleb?
I used to teach at schools, multiple schools, and most of them transitioned online, but some didn't like the online format, so currently no teaching for me.
So you're not going to be able to go back to that job that you had at the schools?
Once the schools reopen, which would be end of this year, hopefully.
Joke's on them.
Yeah.
Because now their kids' school is online.
Yeah.
So what good did it do to complain?
Do you think things are going to go back to normal, in the normal that we were used to?
I think things will start to kick in again in terms of jobs, but I think there will be a new construct on the way jobs are. Now that we've been in this online form, I think a lot of people, depending on what their job is, are thriving. And once things get back to normal, I think the way people can realize they can work from home, and even some forms of online school. Not all of it, but I think some of it might stay.
Because I know you like the NBA.
Yeah.
And even the NBA is trying to figure out a way to get back to normal. Like, they had this whole thing where they were doing a 2-on-2 thing, and they were like, for 4 people to be on the court, there was like some 16-page document of regulations that they need to follow. And it's like, that's only for 4 people. Imagine when you have a stadium full and then you got referees and then you got the teams on the benches and everything. It's like, people now are probably going to be like, people are going to be more aware of of germs. They're going to be more aware of sicknesses.
I mean, I've seen limits on how many people can enter supermarkets, Market Basket, Home Depot. Are there going to be limits on crowds in stadiums, even when the NBA reopens or soccer, NFL opens? They're going to be reduced numbers in these stadiums.
I mean, I've heard varying unconfirmed reports that they're looking to reopen 1 person per 6 seats.
What?
Yeah.
That means the numbers of people in stadiums will reduce by like over 80%.
Yeah, and some reports even suggesting that they will play with no fans in the stadiums.
Well, what's that going to do to the price of tickets?
That's
Who would want to pay a ticket
well, they're probably
that's going to be astronomically high because of less numbers in the crowd?
Do you think that would bring an opportunity for more channels to pop up streaming content then? Because if they know they can't make their money off of tickets, they can probably go pay-per-view. I don't know. It's just
That's a good point. Pay-per-view,
how they gonna make the millions of
Pay-per-view?
dollars they need to pay these contracts?
So you think the revenues are not going to be there to be made as they were before in stadiums, people present?
I mean, it'll probably be much more difficult. I mean, who?
Do you think some leagues will just disappear?
No. I mean, if they were generating revenue before, I mean, that shows that there was an interest from the public. And even with reduced income, I still believe they can operate. And the NBA has said they can even operate with no fans.
But will this mean reduced salaries
Of
Yeah.
course.
and wages
Yeah,
for
sure.
masks, gloves? I mean, it's like the norm in Japan. Is that what the world's going to look like in America and other countries now?
Yeah, until a vaccine, for sure.
Until a vaccine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what's your view on a universal vaccine for 7 billion people? I mean, Gates is advocating this. People like Dr. Fauci, one of Gates's, employees, who's advising President Trump. He's pro-vaccine. Do you think a vaccine is going to be released?
It's inevitable.
Yeah, it's going to be released, but it's how it's going to be released. Is it going to be put onto the schedule? Is it going to be covered by healthcare? Are you going to have to pay out of pocket for it? Is it going to be monopolized?
Is it going to be mandatory,
Yeah.
you think?
The flu shot isn't mandatory, but if you're applying to college or you're applying for certain work positions, you need to take a vaccine and you need to have a health certificate. So it just depends.
Well, here's the thing. World leaders, politicians, they don't want to see this happen again, right?
Of course not.
They have the power to make it mandatory. And if they feel there's a high chance or even a probability that we can avoid this situation again by making it mandatory, they can do that. All right, they're not, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, they're not going to, the Center for Disease Control, they're not going to, the Center for Disease.
We don't survive this coronavirus. Don't get the Rona.
Bombard your house, break the door down, put you on the floor, give you an intravenous injection. They're not going to coerce in that way, but they will coerce by government stopping you to travel. Maybe you won't be allowed to work unless you can prove that you've got, like you got a vaccine certificate.
At that point, that's like Civil War types
But
of
that wouldn't be
power.
state mandated. That would be for the company requesting for you to have a health certificate.
It'd be more private then.
It'd be more privatized.
I don't think companies would mandate that because it puts barriers barriers to their business. If that happens, I think it's going to have to be state mandated. That's my view. I think politicians will be encouraging that, maybe even ordering that. Would you take a vaccine?
There's different types of research and media. Like the traditional news media is grey media because it's not peer reviewed. Anyone can put anything out there and claim it to be true. State reviewed research and peer reviewed research is multiple people on the same topic reviewing material. And usually vaccines are peer reviewed, right?
Mhm.
So it's multiple people checking Obviously not a large sample size, but they're still overviewing the research. So if it is peer-reviewed, if it has been tested, and it is required for me to travel abroad or required for me to apply for a certain position, I wouldn't have a choice.
And what do you think of this speculation about there being nanochips in the vaccine, and then you will have a digital ID in your body, and governments and government agencies intelligence agencies can track you? What do you think of that? Do you think that's likely to happen? Can it happen? Is the technology there for this to happen?
Yeah.
If it is, I wouldn't know about it. I mean, we wouldn't know about it.
Yeah,
if
we
it
wouldn't,
was.
but I think so.
I mean, that's going on to another level, microchips in. Like, I wouldn't go that far to say microchips inside vaccines.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it's
in
just,
Davos, in the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates has had gatherings and meetings in those forums trying to convince world leaders, and I've heard leaders who've attended those meetings firsthand have said Gates has he's got an agenda. He wants to release a vaccine, and he wants also to see universal ID on every person on the planet.
So if we wake up, we're gonna have like the Windows logo pop up in our eyes, or not?
with the startup sound.
Yeah,
It could be the Apple logo.
Patch Tuesday, you don't wake up because Windows security patch failed or something.
I mean,
What do you think?
I'm no expert on this, but I'm sure it's a fantasy many people in high positions dream about.
Ooh.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if they introduce their vaccine not on my dead body, will I have it? They can take that vaccine and stick it where the sun don't shine. Not unless it's gone through years of trials. It's not like it's something existing on the immunization schedule that's common, that's known. And even some of the vaccines that are there, people have question marks over them. And we're going to just trust this. We're going to trust world leaders to say, to stay safe. I mean, everyone's telling us, stay at home, stay safe. Then they'll be saying, take the vaccine, stay safe. When government agencies say, stay safe, beware. That normally means they want to control you. How long is this going to go on for? I mean, we had the stay-at-home policy here in Massachusetts. Should have ended May the 4th. Now that's been extended May the 18th. Germany, who reportedly had low COVID-19 mortality rates, they lifted it. Yeah, they lifted the restrictions, and now cases are rocketing right now. That was in the news. And now they're considering another lockdown, even one with more restrictions. How long is this going to continue?
They're hoping that it's a seasonal flu. So like the regular flu, during the summer cases drop drastically, and the temperature will change the potency of it. So during the summer, you would hope and you would expect some restrictions to be lifted. But once winter rolls around again, and you now have corona and the flu, without a vaccine, you can expect restrictions to come back.
So we got over 6 months of tight restrictions, and then you got like 3 or 4 months of 60%.
It's like a curfew for the whole.
That doesn't sound like America at all. That sounds like Soviet Russia.
Be at home before 10.
Yeah, it's like that doesn't sound like America at all.
We're being conditioned just to obey orders.
I disagree.
Why?
Just because you don't agree with agree with something out of your control doesn't mean it's wrong. You know, if you look at the statistics, now I see many people saying this. Oh, look, it's less deadly. More people have died from the flu this year than COVID. It's less than 1%. It's not as bad as you say it is. And the reason why that is happening is because of the restrictions in the quarantine. If we were not quarantined, ICU beds would be, less people would be getting ICU beds. The death rate would be extremely high. Millions possibly could even be infected in America alone. Tens of thousands of more deaths. And the reason why the numbers aren't inflated as they should be is because of quarantine. So people are seeing the benefits of quarantine, but not linking it to it. And they're saying, oh, it's not as bad as people say.
But is quarantine warranted? Is it like a sledgehammer to crack a nut? I mean, what about if people went back to work and just kept social distancing and wore mask gloves? surely that would have a similar impact to reducing numbers as we see them now.
I read a book a while ago, it's called Nudge, and it explains how small nudges can benefit people even if the nudges are forced. So let's say you have a subscription, $15 a month, and they don't remind you to cancel the subscription. You could be paying that for a whole year. But if there are small nudges throughout the month to cancel it, you would do it. Now, if you leave people to their own devices and you say quarantine yourself, just like the subscription, you have any time to cancel it. And with the social distancing, they tell you to do it. But you don't, most people will not follow the restrictions completely. Masks 6 feet away. But if it's enforced, you eliminate the possibility of people not following it. And therefore you achieve the result. You know, staying safe and canceling the subscription, right?
But to what extent do you think? Do you think it should get so to the point where in some states they'll fine you up to $1,000 if you don't wear a mask?
Exactly, that's the type of nudge people need. I mean, not a mask per se,
Okay.
but restrictions of that.
But what you're saying proves my point. You can. There are alternatives to just quarantine. And if there are fines for not wearing the PPE and social distancing, wouldn't those be the nudges that people need? I'm just saying, quarantine, is it really warranted?
Initially, yeah. I mean, it's a new strain.
Yeah,
it's
initially,
something
I
we've never
agree.
seen before. We were uncertain about the death rate, we were uncertain about it in general. So quarantine was the sledgehammer to the nut that you needed initially. Quarantine throughout the winter, maybe, maybe not. But for now, I think it was warranted.